I'm Dave Bunton, and I have that coveted time slot of I ate an hour ago, and now I'm just getting comfortable in my seat. So we'll see if we can kind of keep things moving here. 25 years ago, a group of organizations got together and created the Appraisal Foundation. One of those organizations was NAIFA. You have been a strong supporter of our organization throughout the 25 years. And in the early years, your primary contribution to the foundation, frankly, was financial. Well, we're on our own 2 feet now, but your primary contribution to the foundation now is intellectual property. I'm going to talk about the Appraisal Practices Board today. John Morazzo serves on that. I'm going to talk about the Appraisal Standards Board. One of your members, Barry Shea, is the vice chairman of that. Tomorrow, we're going to orient Tom Manuzzo, a new member of our Board of Trustees. And Chuck Blau, who just stepped out of the room, is serving, he's an active member on a task force that we've put together to try to get all the sponsors to work together to try to develop consistent courses, as opposed to having 7 or 8 different organizations all go out there and write the same thing. Why don't we do it collaboratively? Because there are certain fixed costs that would make it more beneficial for everyone. So Chuck's involved in that. So we appreciate the contributions that your members are making to the foundation and to the appraisal profession. Today I'm going to talk about 4 broad categories: the Appraiser Qualifications Board, the Appraisal Standards Board, the Practices Board, and some things that the foundation is doing as a whole. Starting in 2008, every state now offers the same exam. Before that, there were as many as 9 different exams around the country, all reviewed and approved by the AQB, but the quality really wasn't that good, to be honest with you. So now every state and their territory uses the AQB exam. It's a much more difficult exam than it used to be. It's 165 questions. It's practice-based, and by that, instead of asking you how many advisory opinions are in USPAP, they'll give you a set of circumstances, a particular problem, and then maybe ask you a calculation question, a methodology question, an ethics question. So you really got to know what you're doing. And that's why you're given 6 to 8 hours to take it. These are the pass rates through last year. Back in 2008, the pass rates were right around 50%, so they're going up every year. And that's in large part because the people are taking all the education now that you need to have, like 300 hours for general certified. Where back in 2008, there was a transition period where some states were allowing you you didn't have to complete all that education. About every 5 to 7 years, well, let me just back up. 25 years ago, when they first started the qualification criteria, there was no demographic information about appraisers out there. So you had the lending community say, don't raise the bar too high, we'll have a shortage of appraisers and there'll be a credit crunch. So we didn't really know where to set it, and frankly, in retrospect, maybe the bar was set a little bit low 25 years ago. So the philosophy of our AQB has been about every 5 to 7 years, take a look at that criteria, and when I say criteria, I'm talking about education, experience, examination, and continuing education. Take a look at it and see if it should be revised. Generally, it's been raised over the past 25 years. Even doing that, and even making the revisions that I'm going to talk about in a minute, we still have the distinction of having the lowest qualifications for appraisers in the industrialized world. When I tell people, we have a lot of delegations visit the foundation from overseas, and I say, to be a general certified appraiser, you need 300 hours. They think I'm talking 300 college credit hours, not 300 classroom hours. It's a huge difference. So it's a real shock to them. We have probably the best set of domestic standards in the world, lowest qualifications. Kind of an unusual situation. To give you an example, in Mexico, just south of here, you have to be an architect or an engineer before you can be a valuer. And by the way, every other country uses the word valuer. We use appraiser, but it's the same, means the same thing. We issued 5 exposure drafts over 2 years. We adopted changes to the qualifications effective December 2011. Those new qualifications go into effect January 1, 2015. If you already have a state credential, you're fine. If you want to move up, say licensed to general certified residential, I would highly recommend you do that sooner rather than later. Here are some of the changes. Number 1, a bachelor's degree is going to be required for certified residential and certified general. Now, remember earlier I said that we do the state exam now? Well, we ask demographic questions with that. We ask, how old are you? Where did you get your education? What was your career before this? 3 out of every 4 people since 2008 that have been sitting for the general certified exam already have a college degree. So it's not the game changer that it may first appear to be. And over half of the people that have sat for the certified residential classification exam also have a college degree. You're going to need an associate's degree or 30 college credit hours for the state license classification. I don't know how many of you are in the room are state licensed. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but Jim made reference to a GAO study, and I just want to throw a couple numbers out at you because it's fascinating, I think. At one time, there were as many as 30,000 licensed appraisers in the United States. That number today, literally today, is 12,073. It's gone from 30,000 to 12,000. Primary reason, FHA, saying they have to use certified residential now. 7 states have done away with the license category. So you're seeing the license category go down. Conversely, 10 years ago, certified residential appraisers in the United States, 35,000. Today, 53,000. So you're having, and certified general is gone from 32,000 up to 38,000. So you're seeing the vast majority of people are getting their state certification, and the license thing is sort of a thing in the past, or is quickly becoming a thing of the past. Here are some of the other changes. Mandatory background checks. Most people involved in a real estate transaction have to have a background check. You all are in people's homes, so it kind of makes sense. This one's a little tricky. Our qualifications say that anyone entering has to have a background check. Some states are talking about when you renew, you may have to have a background check if you haven't had one before. That depends on each individual state. You're going to have experience and education to sit for the exam. Before, the only qualification from a qualifications board was education. Because it's a practice-based exam now, we feel you need to have the experience or you're not going to pass the exam. The other thing is that the Dodd-Frank legislation that Jim referred to did a couple things. One, if you're a state and you have a license category, you have to meet the AQB minimum qualifications. Before, it was just recommended. And secondly, if you have a supervisor, appraiser, trainee appraiser classification in your state, you're going to have to meet the qualifications set by the AQB. And they include things such as, if you're a supervising appraiser, you can't have a disciplinary record over the last few years. You can't train more than 3 appraisers, things like that. And then both the supervisory appraiser and the trainees have to take a day-long course so that each one knows what the expectations are of the other. Standards Board, you're familiar with that. Those are the USPAP folks. Some of the things they're working on right now, more specificity about communicating with a client. When does an assignment begin? What happens when you communicate with a client where you send them an email that has a value in it? It's not your report, but there's a value in a communication. What do you call that? And when does an assignment end? Is it when you give it to your client? Or is it when your client accepts it? Is it when you get paid? When does an assignment end? They're revising the current 3 reporting options, the restricted report, summary report, and self-contained report. There won't be 3 in the next edition of USPAP. I don't know if there'll be 1 or 2, but there won't be 3. They're going to retire standards 4 and 5, real property appraiser consulting. Here's the problem that our board is faced with right now. And you all are familiar with USPAP and the way it's structured, where you have record keeping, ethics, and competency all in the front of the book. Historically, we've always done one size fits all. USPAP covers whether you're valuing a home, or this hotel, or a regional mall, or a going concern of this hotel, and so we do the one size fits all. Well, one size doesn't always fit all, and we're learning that more and more. And here, I want to give you this as an example. One idea is, why don't we allow draft reports? The concept of a draft report is not in USPAP. What if you have, from now on, you can have a draft report as long as you have a disclaimer that says, this is merely a draft report? Well, in the business valuation community, that is the current practice. That's what they all do. It's a little bit like the way an accountant who does an audit. He comes and gives you the draft audit before it's in final. In the business valuation community, they always give a draft. They want to make sure that their numbers and assumptions are correct. Now take that same draft report with a disclosure on it and put it in the residential lending community, where you're going to give that to a lender. That ain't going to work, right? He's going to, or he'll ask for one. He'll say, I'd like to have a draft report for like $50. Then I'll let you know if I want the full report later. So there's a good example where it's common practice over here, it would be foolish over here. So one idea, and it's very early here, but one idea is maybe we ought to set USPAP up where you have one section just for federally related real estate transactions. Maybe that would be cleaner, so you don't have to go on an Easter egg hunt through the whole document to look for things, you know? So we'll see how that all plays out.